This Paulovnia tree over there is getting taller and taller. Soon it will be as tall as the oak tree behind it. I find this very impressive. And the tree isn't that old. So this is a very lovely sight. Here we made a few modifications in order to balance a little bit our two wells that we have currently. I should probably mention before I go into details one important thing. We are at the end of summer now. So that means that all our water resources are close to depletion, which is completely normal, until the rain comes back. And then the soil will be filled with water again. And our wells, they are shallow wells. They are not a deep well. We are not tapping into the groundwater in itself. This is surface water. So the caverns that are below the below the surface, they fill with water that is seeping from the ground into the cavern. And the cavern is like a tank. So if the cavern can hold 3,000 liters, then we have 3,000 liters. And then we can pump these 3,000 liters out, and overnight it will fill in again, or fill up again, by the water that is seeping in from the surrounding soil. That is how these wells are constructed. Therefore, our water supply is limited to the amount of water that is stored inside of these caverns. These caverns has been built a long time ago, 40 or more years ago. We did not build them, neither did the previous owner or the owner before the previous one. So this is a given, and there's nothing that we can change at the moment. Instead, we are in the process of making more ponds. So we have built one pond, which holds roughly 1 million liters of water, and we have not used this pond so far. It was thought to be used for irrigation, but we have not done this. And we are also in a process of planning to build another pond, a much larger one, somewhere up there, the hill, and then down into the valley. There is a video about that seasonal creek there that for the first time was carrying a little bit of water for 3 days. But the point is, these ponds do fill over the wet period of the year, and then that is the water that we can use. And we have not done this yet. So we are preparing things so that we can then use a finite amount of water for irrigation, and we can calculate how long this is going to last. There is a lot to come. We are just getting started. So whatever you see currently is just the very, very beginning, and we make do with the material and the resources that we have right now. So don't believe that what you see is the result of a planning process. No. This is just ad hoc to make do with what we have. The real thing, this is about to come. And this is then for the upcoming summer next year. So we are now thinking about what we are going to do in autumn when it rains. So there is no goal to now, at the end of the summer basically, fix these problems. And when I say at the end of the summer, today is the 1st of August. So there's a little bit of summer left, and we will survive with what we have. And then we are in autumn. So there is no point in trying to scramble and get everything ready, because by the time all material would have been delivered, summer's over. So what you see is what we do right now to react a little bit to certain events. And then, over winter, we can then think about how to do it right. And before, we will do a few experiments. So, to let everybody know, I finally got in touch with the distributor of Senegal. I mentioned that in my replies to some of your comments. And this distributor in Barcelona is now compiling an order to send us some of these wobblers and accessories so that we can run an experiment. And this experiment we will run there in the open area. Basically, we built an irrigation system from scratch for the sole purpose of knowing how much irrigation we can actually operate. So we have 2 pumps, and we will use these 2 pumps for a test. So everything is shut off except the system that we have there, and then we will see how many wobblers will work with either pump at a given time. And then we take this apart, and then we install these wobblers in other places, but this time then for real. There will be a lot of modification there in a compound. We will have to excavate and bury the pipe, and it will be a different type of pipe. It will not be black pipe for agriculture that you can place and retrieve. So this will all be underground, and there will be a watering controller and lots of other things. We have plenty of time to get this right until summer next year. So we have learned a few things, and keep in mind also, this is not a farm. This is not someone who produces vegetables and has irrigated crop. This is a Dehesa. So that means all this land has been used for ranching. And for ranching you don't need any irrigation. At least not around here. So ranching means you have water for the animals so that they can drink. Either you have a big pond that stays full for a long time, or you have tanks like this one, 1,000 liter, and it gets filled up. Or you have another one, like the one you can hardly see it there in the back, 3,000 liters. And this tank, for example, by the previous owner, got filled once a week with a gas-powered pump. So the guy came, filled up the pump with gasoline, let it run for 4 hours, the tank was full, and if it was overflowing, that was not a problem because the water returns to the well, which is right next to it. And then the pigs that were here in this area, they had a waterer right there, made of concrete, and it was gravity fed, and that was enough. Of course, you don't have this if you want to do irrigation. The pressure will not be enough. But for a low pressure animal waterer, such as also these things, this is more than enough. So let me show you what here is inside, and then also explain what we did today. So I open this up. You see a buoy, and this thing uses the gravity-fed inlet here. Where does the water come from? It comes from this tank. So you see the outlet. So that water column of these 1,000 liters, that is the pressure. And that is what fills this. These things are made especially for a very low pressure system. And this is enough to provide drinking water to animals. So now what we did. So we had this problem yesterday that a lot of the things were not working as we wanted because we ran out of water. Running out of water means the well down at the creek, where the very powerful pump is installed, was not able to have its cavern filled overnight so that we can pump it dry until the afternoon. So we were running out of that water. So maybe instead of the usual 3,000 liters, we only got half of it. And then of course a few irrigation targets were not irrigated because we ran out of that water. And there's nothing we can do, because if the ground all around is now much drier than before, then the process of filling up this cavern will take a lot longer. So we had to shift a few things around, and that also meant that we disconnected this animal water, which was down there. So we moved it to here, and now we connected to this outlet a bunch of gardening hose and a 3-way here and a 3-way there, so that that animal waterer for the cows, as long as we have them over there, is filled. This for the horses and also sheep is filled, and the third one is the one for Sakahawea over there. So she has her private animal waterer because she cannot leave because she's blind. And this is now filled by gravity from this 1000 liter buffer tank, so to say, and the black pipe there is connected to the well down at the creek. So now that we have taken off a lot of the load, it should be enough to keep this always filled. And if the animals like to have a drink in the early morning when we have no solar power and the pump is therefore not moving any water at all, it will be provided by this tank. And I doubt that they will empty this within a very short amount of time. And after all, we are in the process of removing more of the cattle. So right now you don't see them. They have gone for a walk. We do provide them straw and as feed for a couple of more days. Today we had a visit by a buyer. So this person will probably buy all the adults. And then we are left with the calves. And our plan is to use this area over here, which is kind of a corral, and you see there a feeder that we used before, to basically turn this into a feedlot. And in there we will also do some construction to have a roof with solar panels on top of it, and a very interesting construction so that we can also create compost in a deep bedding system. You will see how this goes when we start, and you will then also see after some time the final result. But the point is, we will remove the adult bovines and keep the little ones and raise them. So soon there will be forage again when the rain starts. 3 weeks later we have forage. I expect the rain to come by September, October, somewhere around that time frame. And then we can use the calves, which are then around a year old, some of them, to let them graze. We don't have to do this very strict rotational grazing this time, and they will not respect the fence anyway, that's the problem. And we have removed most of the wires, so we'll do this in a little bit of a wild fashion and basically let them roam as they like. And here in this area we will then provide them additional feed. And later on, when they are also gone, so when they are, let's say, 2 years old, we will then use whatever we install there for the horses and probably some donkeys, so that the compost making, with the help also of pigs, will continue. So there will be a proper watering system. And this is not the one. So this is a temporary solution for the time being, and the proper system will be completely designed, well thought out, planned from scratch, and not a makeshift system like we have at the moment. So that makeshift system does only exist because we had been doing ranching. And for ranching, things are a lot easier, except that you have to take care of the animals and all the shenanigans that they come up with. So it's basically a thing that you have to react instead of having a planned process. That is the difference between extensive ranching and intensive animal farming, factory farming in a feedlot. There, again, everything is planned. But that does not help the soil. So we're not going to do this. And after all, we are not in this to earn a living from selling meat and other animal products. That was never the goal. The point is to get this place green and to restore the soil. So after all, we call this an ecosystem restoration project, and we have tried to do this by cattle ranching. Ellen Savory explains that this in dry climate does work, and yes, it does work, but it takes a long time, and we don't have sufficient animals and sufficient area to move them around and move them away. So on 45 hectares with some 30 head of cattle, it does not work. The area is way too small. I'm pretty sure that on a 1,000 hectare with 500 head, it does work. But we are not in that position. And collaboration with the neighbors and all this does not work for many different reasons. So that is why we decided, and also for an economic reason, there is no market for beef here, and the way it is being done is just a proposition to lose money fast. So we had to stop the bleeding. So now we decided to plant trees. And for that, we need an irrigation system. So now, for the new venture, we will get all the things into place that we need. And this soon will be replaced by something completely different. We might reuse the tank. And we might also reuse the animal waters. But we will not have gardening hoses around for something real, for something serious. So all this is a temporary thing, and next year don't expect to see this anymore. One thing that I should mention as well, you see the makeshift solar panel installation. These solar panels have been like that for way too long, and they are not enough. We need at least twice the amount of panels. Right now those are 18, and we need twice, so that the batteries can be charged a lot quicker, and we can actually use the energy stored in these batteries overnight. If we use too much energy during the night, we will then lack the energy during the day, because it's either charge the battery or consume the energy. So we need a lot more panels, and we will have. So once we start building things, the first things that we will build is roofs in some way, so that we can put solar panels on it, on them. We don't have solar panels on the roof of the house because the way this was constructed, and again, that house was never meant to be a house. So we are way behind the original schedule because of all the issues. Doesn't matter, this is how life goes. And the type of metal that is there is also not the right type to fix solar panels. Of course we can build a structure there on top so that the panels can be fixed to the roof or to that structure, but there are better ways, and we better build a shade roof here and there or something similar, which we need anyway, and then make a proper installation and a permanent one, instead of putting something on that blue roof there, which soon should disappear. So I do have plans to build a proper house there behind these trees. There is an open space, and that should be a real house. It's not the forever home, but it's the home within this compound or farmyard, as you might call it, and then things get into shape. So this is the difference between I know what I want And I will build this by having a plan, solid and well thought. Or I need to learn, I need to figure things out, I need to see what works, what does not work. I need to get a feel for the land and the things that I might be doing there. Hindsight is always 20/20. So when you start something, it is wise not to make any permanent decisions or build permanent structures. The permaculture guys also talk about this. So they have a list of things in a certain order, and the permanence of things is taken into consideration. And that's basically the same thought. Others call this agility. So I need to learn by doing it what I want, what I need. And then I make adjustments. Of course, this takes time. If I want to build a factory for a certain product that has been designed and there are prototypes, well, that's a completely different thing. Then I build a factory to make that widget. And then I have absolutely clear vision, there is no doubt, because I need a space for that and that machine, for that and that material. I need a lane there to move material from one station to the next and all this. But this is not the case here. So we bought this land with a vision to get it green and make it nice so that we can live here and enjoy our life and also produce some food. And then there's the idea, okay, this is going to be very expensive, we don't mind, and it would be nice to lower the amount of losses over time. So what kind of business can we also build without jeopardizing the overall goal? The overall goal to make this place green. So we tried a few things, and here in this area, ranching is what people usually do, so we tried that. And reading about ranching in arid areas, holistic management, the thing from Ellen Severy and others, seemed nice and appropriate. So we tried that with some success. And then we learned about issues on the commercial side, that there isn't really a market for beef, and also the way how the things with the pigs work is not very, very suitable to our overall goal. But of course, you don't learn this by asking around. There's a lot of myths and misinformation, and people won't tell you everything. So, or they think that something is just normal, it's the way it is. And a lot of people just do ranching here, extensive ranching, out of tradition. So, in many cases, the wife is la ganadera, is the rancher, and she will take care of the animals, or has a helper usually from the large extended family. And her husband works somewhere else in a regular job, in a shop, in a workshop, factory, in an office, or even at a gas station. So that is not our future. That is not why we bought this land for a significant amount of money. So we had to figure out what can we do without jeopardizing the overall goal. This land has been exploited and it has turned into dust. So now we have to fix this because we want to fix it. And now that we learned a lot of things, we decided to use these. So now we plant trees. And for the trees, completely other things are required. And with my experience in software development, I am trying to figure out a way to make this in a logical, sensible, well-ordered way. And I built the tools so that I can manage this. Does not happen overnight, but it is happening. But then we have to be patient, because these are the fastest treeing fastest growing tree species in the world. And still, it takes a while. So until these trees provide the shade and the biomass and are independent from irrigation, 3 or 4 years is the time required. So until they are independent, we need to provide water. So now that's the challenge, and now that's the task we have to work on. See us solve the problem. And those here are also making a very strong impression. So this is beginning to look like a Palovnia forest. Soon they will be high enough so that there is shade below. The dogs have actually started to use that shade and also the moisture to cool down a little bit. And next week, when Angel is back from vacation, we will then be able to cut the understory a little bit. Now we have one. That is also a very good thing, and give this area a nicer look.